What am I to do?
Welcome to Razor Branding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hey y'all, thanks for joining us. Today is National Podcast Day, and so we are celebrating with an all-day podcast marathon. That's right. We're going all the way to midnight. Every hour, we're talking to a different nonprofit about how this year has affected them with their fundraising, the work that they do, the people that they serve, and how you can help support them. So we're going to have some links set up so you can get into their Mighty Cause page and give some money to help donate. So I want you to listen, learn, and give. I am so excited to be joined today by Kim Thaxton with Healing House, and she's going to talk to us all about how Healing House has had to pivot this year and what you can do to help Healing House survive. Kim, thanks for joining us on the show.
Well, thanks for having me this morning. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I know we've had a chance to work together off and on for years, and I love the fact that our agency has been able to do work for you and some of your causes. So let's roll back the clock a little bit, all the way back to when we got shut down and y'all were getting ready for Family Adventure Day, and then nobody can leave their house and go on an adventure. What did y'all do?
Well, that was just a crazy time. I think if you remember, Family Adventure Day was kicking off on March 13th. On the afternoon of the 12th is when we were completely shut down. So we had 400 families that already had their Family Adventure Day maps. We had locations set up, and all of a sudden it was like everybody needs to stay home. So we did what everybody else did. We had to just shut everything down. We had to let everybody know that we couldn't have Family Adventure Day. And that is our second largest fundraising event of the year. So we have two big events, Martinis and Family Adventure Day. And so we had to shut that down. But the community was just amazing. We offered, our families, would you like to keep your Family Adventure Day bag and your donation, leave it as a donation? Do you need a partial refund? Do you need a full refund? And I have to say, most of the families said, please keep it as a donation. So we were very, very blessed that we didn't have to take a huge hit on Family Adventure Day. It was devastating that we couldn't have it, but thank goodness that we had that opportunity.
Right. Thank goodness. And so the monies that you were able to keep that you collected from the Family Adventure Day map sales, let's talk about how you use those. What does Healing House do? Who do they help?
So Healing House provides grief support services for children age 4 to 17 that have experienced the death of a parent or a sibling. So we currently have about 200 children that are enrolled in grief support groups. They come here every other week. All of our services at Healing House are provided completely free of charge. So the funds we raise during Family Adventure Day through Martinis provide those services for the children and the families that come to Healing House.
Right. So we had a good family friend who, of the members, 7 members of the family, 6 contracted COVID, and 1, a 19-year-old triplet son, passed away. And so when I think about the 2 17-year-old twin siblings who would be within your age range, I recommended to the parents that they bring the kids. So do you go up to the 19-year-olds, or is there a different facet for them to go down as the 17-year-olds come to you? How does that work?
So about a year and a half ago, we realized that, our services typically end when a child graduates from high school, but a lot of our kids that were in that teen group, had either just gotten started, or it was very difficult for them to find a support group that they fit into. Typically, when you think of an adult support group, you think a lot about older people that maybe have lost a spouse or maybe have lost an adult child, and a 19-year-old doesn't normally fit there. So we actually started a young adult support group that meets here at the Healing House every other week. Anyone in the community can come to that. It's mainly geared to people who are between 18 and 40. And we found that is a little safer for those kids. They feel a little more free to talk in that type of an environment. And so that's available to anyone to come to. So they would certainly fit in that young adult.
Good. Well, I gave the resource to their parents because I know that, I can't imagine losing a sibling or losing a child. And so I think the work that you do is so important in our community. So you didn't just have Family Adventure Day impacted. Also, your biggest other fundraiser of the year is Martinis, which is typically in August. So what'd you do there? How'd you pivot?
Well, we got a lot of advice from you, which was great. We actually held out a lot of hope for martinis because at the time we were still kind of like, we were having gatherings of 250 people. Can we make a smaller gathering? Do we have our typical Teeny Tuesday tour, which leads up to martinis? Normally with that event, we have 8 restaurants that partner with us. Every week we have a supporter night on Tuesday nights. And we collect a lot of money through votes, and then we end the event with a big gala. So we did hold out a lot of hope with that. And then in the end had to, like you say, pivot and cancel that. But one of the things we did is we shortened our Teeny Tuesday tour to 4 weeks instead of 8 weeks. And instead of it being just on a Tuesday night, we lengthened the tour to the full week. So people could go any night of the week to any of 2 restaurants. We wanted to, a lot of things, Jackie. We really wanted to share the love with the restaurants that have been supporting us for years. And we know that at that point in time, they were down to 50% occupancy. Restaurants were struggling. We wanted our supporters to feel good about going out to eat while supporting Healing House and partner with them and give them, some of the support that they've shown us all these years. So we did the tour for the full week. We did a 4-week tour, which ended up being great. And then we weren't able to have the gala. We possibly at one point could have had it, but didn't think that that was the correct thing to do. And we actually took some advice that you had given us, which was to have the gala from home. So buy a ticket to stay home. And so we put a little martinis twist on it. We called it Martinis a la Maison. So you bought a ticket to stay home. When you did that, you got 2 of the hand-painted martini glasses that you would normally get when you come to the gala. Our glass artist, who is Lauren Sibley Brasso, painted a beautiful companion piece, and we gave everybody a print of that piece when they purchased their tickets. And then we held an online auction, which went for 2 weeks. And so we were able to recoup some of those funds that we generally make through martinis, doing it that way. So some of those things that we did, we'll probably continue to do going forward, even when we have the gala. We liked having the auction online where people who don't generally go to the gala get to see the auction. So I think we'll continue that. And we actually like having that ticket to stay home because not everybody goes to the gala, but everybody likes the glasses and they want to support Healing House. And so that was a great way to incorporate that with having to stay home, and probably something we'll carry forward with us as we go into next year.
Right. I saw a post on Facebook, and I think it was CJ from 99.9 KTDY showing off his collection of the martini glasses. He is quite the collector of the Healing House Martinis event glasses, and I love that. They're so beautiful to see them all lined up, and this year's was just lovely.
It was just beautiful, and it made me so sad. We got all our promotional material, and it was so different and so beautiful with the flowers, and it's like, oh, we have to use this. But what was sad, we got to put it into play this year.
Right. Now, anybody who's watching or listening that has had the chance to either be a part of Healing House and understand how vital their services are, or and knows how other people have had to use those services, now's a great time for you to give and support the cause. Michael's going to put the comments up with a link to the Mighty Cause page and a way you can donate, as well as on screen. So please make sure you give today. That's what today is all about. So, Kim, as you think about next year, what's the thought on Family Adventure Day or martinis or the future?
Well, it's kind of a work in progress. And actually right now is when we typically start to plan our Family Adventure Day. But I think our concern is, are we ready for that yet? Would we be ready in April? And we don't want to plan it again to have to cancel it in March. So what we're going to do is be meeting with some of our bigger Family Adventure Day locations, kind of talking about some different ways to maybe do Family Adventure Day. And to be honest with you, if we want to have a typical day where we have all those families out and about doing activities, we may actually push it. We may have to wait until we used to do Family Adventure Day in October. We may push it to October of next year. So many things are going virtual. So many things are changing. But one of the joys of Family Adventure Day is spending that day out in the community with your family, with other members of our community doing activities, bringing a lot of people that maybe don't know about the different businesses and nonprofits in our area, bringing them into your doors. So we'd love to keep it the same if we could. This would be like year 14 that we've had Family Adventure Day. We would hate to have to change that. But like everybody else, we have to kind of move with what the new normal is. So
Right.
we're just in the planning processes of that right now.
What about Family Adventure Month? Because those businesses are open, they are welcoming people. I think the concern would be everybody invading all on one day.
One
So if we
time.
broke it up either by people selecting which day of the month they could go, or dividing it by tickets or alphabet, then you don't have that rush of 400 people all showing up in the same day. It's 400 people over 30 days, which feels a lot safer and more COVID compliant.
Yes. And so, I mean, what our plan is now is we're just starting to talk with some of our locations. We're getting together to kind of brainstorm and see where everybody is. And, one of the things with Family Adventure Day are these activity stops, these businesses, they open their doors, they provide their staff, they provide their product, they give everything to the families at no charge to them, because the money the families pay for their maps is being donated strictly to Healing House. So I know people have had a tough year. It's been a tough go. And so we want to make sure that it works for them, where we can have them help open their doors and also bring some people back out that maybe have been in and haven't had a chance to do those things. So we do want to make it work for everybody. So that's going to be something that we are starting to work on just here in the next few weeks as to where that's going to go right now.
Right. I mean, I think there is some hopeful optimism that at that point it'll have been a full year. Maybe there's a vaccine. Maybe we're starting to emerge into phase 4 or whatever it is that comes after 3.1 or whatever we're in right now. And then I can see how the businesses that have suffered for the past year could really use this acknowledgement and recognition and awareness, because maybe somebody comes in as part of Family Adventure Day and thinks, oh, my kids love going to Surge or Epic or Clayfish Bisque or Borden's or bowling, and they come back. And so I think, for the businesses, it's a win-win in that sense, because they get exposed to this whole other market that can become a dollar-paying customer next time.
Yes. And so, I mean, we have a lot of people that for Family Adventure Day come from the Lafayette area, but also from our surrounding areas, our little towns and communities around us that maybe don't get to Lafayette all the time, that don't know everything that we have here. So exposing them to new places and new experiences has always been so special. So that's one of the things we're going to work on here in the next month or so, as to how that'll work and what works for both the families and the businesses. And hopefully we'll get that lined up. But we've been talking about possibly lengthening that Family Adventure Day so that it is, like you say, not everybody coming on one day like we typically do.
Right, because then you can be COVID compliant and people can still support businesses, and it sort of hopefully becomes a win-win. I mean, that's ultimately the goal. So going back to Healing House and its mission, as you work with these kids who have had loss, whether it was a sibling or a parent, a family member, talk about the programs and the activities for them. I think people who haven't suffered that directly don't always know what that's like. I mean, is it a bunch of people sitting around in a circle? How does that work?
Well, the Healing House is actually set up as a safe place for children to experience that, the loss, and to talk about their emotions. And a lot of our work is done with children through play, because you can imagine a 6 or 7-year-old is not going to sit around in a circle and just talk about how they feel. So it's hard for adults to do that. So at the Healing House, we have things set up so that there's different avenues for the children to express those emotions. So when the kids come to Healing House, they do start off in what we call our talking circle. We have activities that get up the kids to start talking, whether that be about emotions or support systems, feelings, things that are going on at school. So anything that's happening, we have a little activity to get them to start talking, and they might spend maybe 25 to 30 minutes of their hour and a half in that opening circle. A lot of times families that bring children to Healing House say, well, my kids aren't going to talk. They're not going to express themselves. But you'd be so surprised that when kids are sitting in a room with other children that know how they're feeling, they're very open to share those experiences. And even for a child that doesn't want to talk or doesn't want to share, just sitting in a room with other kids and listening to their stories validates how they're feeling. And And so they know they're not alone. And that's the biggest thing we hear from the families that come to Healing House, is that everybody here speaks our language. And we know that they're not the only child in a classroom who's had a mom or dad die. They're not the only kid in the neighborhood who's had a sister or a brother die. But after the kids are in their opening circle, they have free reign in the back of the house. And things are a little different right now because of COVID. We don't have the kids going into the back of the house, but traditionally the children get to take part in the different rooms that we have. So we'll have a Free to Be Me room, which is filled with costumes and puppets, a sand tray, a kitchen, a medical corner, dress up clothes, different ways that kids can try on alternate personalities, and let us into their worlds through interactive play. So a child might be playing in the sand tray and they might be reenacting an accident, or they might talk about mom while they're playing in the kitchen and about what they used to do together. So they give us little glimpses through their play. And then we have an art room that has all kinds of art supplies that a child could want to use. There's always a little activity in there, but they really have free reign in the art room. We find a lot of times the kids will make something maybe for the person that they're living with now, or as a memorial to their loved one that's died. And we have what I think is our favorite room in the Healing House called the Hurricane Room, which is for those big emotions that aren't appropriate at home. So it's filled with beanbag chairs, a punching bag, a concrete board on the wall so that kids can throw Play-Doh at that. Our goal in that room is just to help them find safe ways to get those really big emotions out. And even for our little ones, just putting a name to that feeling. Grief is very physical for children. So knowing that my stomach hurts is normal, and that's anxiety. Anger builds up a lot. How do I get rid of that? So we have just 4 rules at the Healing House, and that's that all thoughts are okay and all feelings are okay, but you can't hurt yourself and you can't hurt others. And so those are kind of rules that everybody should live by. And our goal is just to teach kids safe ways to express their feelings.
Right. You're talking about the Hurricane Room, and all I can think about is it's the kid version of a rage room. And, I think with the year we've had, it's perfectly understandable for everybody to be having those feelings, even if you haven't lost a loved one. But imagine adding to, global pandemic, wildfires, social unrest, national debates around a presidential election, all of this trauma that we're all suffering in some way. I can only imagine what it's like for kids to have to process that. It's so great that y'all give them this safe place for them to go.
Absolutely. And the things that we're talking about, Jackie, like in the Hurricane Room, in the art room, these are things you can still do at home. I mean, you can hit at home, you can hit a punching bag, you can encourage kids to go out and run down the driveway as hard as they can, just that physical outlet. We talk a lot about doing activities at home, which is what we had to do a lot of during the initial stages of COVID before we had kids back at the house. When we shut everything down, we stopped our support groups for about 3 months, but we spent a lot of time sending activities home, encouraging families to talk, to share their feelings, their emotions. So through art, through journaling, through conversations and questions, to give the families a chance to talk about what was going on. And I think we all need that now. And then also doing a lot of conversations about self-care, because the kids and adults, whether you've lost someone or not, we're all going through a grieving process right now of the life we once had. And so taking care of yourself is very important.
Right. No, I think it's so important. And I think that, we had the opportunity earlier this morning during this National Podcast Day to talk to Foster the Love. And so they were talking about kids in the foster system who have suffered trauma. I can't imagine the trauma that kids go through with the loss of a sibling or a parent. And so what y'all are providing to them, this outlet and these words and tools to be able to navigate this new world and not feel alone, I think it's just so vital.
Thank you. The biggest thing we find here is we just want children to know that there is a safe place for them, that there are people here that are going to listen to them. And although when you lose someone, you may feel like you have a good support system. Sometimes it's just, especially for children, to have a place where there's no prying eyes. it might be hard for them to talk about the person that died with their loved one because it makes mom cry or it makes dad upset. So coming here, they can ask the hard questions. They can ask things that might be uncomfortable at home to talk about. And children typically grieve different than adults. We as adults have boundaries. We would not say certain things. We'd be embarrassed to talk about them. Children grieve in spurts. They will say what's on their mind. They will ask the hard questions. They will ask you things that might take you back. And then they'll move on with their day. They're still kids in the end. They still want to play. They still want to have fun. But having a place that they can express these feelings, ask these questions, blurt out something where it doesn't offend anybody or make anybody upset, it's really special for them.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so if you are watching, please go to their Mighty Cause page and donate, give. Obviously, you can realize what an amazing impact Healing House has in our community. And for those people who are already suffering loss, let's make sure that they've got this, what I would call the St. Jude method, right? Because they don't pay for anything when they show up, just like St. Jude Hospital. And so it's donations that you get from everybody in the community that pays for all of these great services that you're providing. So let's support them the same way we support a St. Jude and give money to Healing House to help them continue to do their good work. So Kim, when you look at the budget for the year, you obviously took a hit from Family Adventure Day. There's a rally there, but it still was down. You took a hit on martinis. You were able to pull some things off, but it still was down. Overall, just maybe from a percentage basis, how much of an impact has this year had on your budget from where, the loss you should have had from what you would have normally recouped this year?
Well, I mean, we're down, Jackie, but we are in a good financial situation where we're able to maintain our services. We've had a lot of support from our sponsors that would normally sponsor the event, saying, "Here's my sponsorship." Even though we're not having the gala, we're going to buy a table. We're going to do some, auction items. And so we're able to manage our expenses so that we can keep our services, free of charge. We've set ourselves up in a good position that Healing House is not going to be in a financial situation where we can't provide those services. When we built our new facility, we made sure that would never happen so that, of course, like everyone else, we need funds to keep things going. We're being called on for a lot of resources right now. One of the things that we do is called a coping kit. It's a grief care package that goes out to any child in the community that's experienced a loss. We've been asked for probably about 400 of those kits this year. And in that kit, we have things to help the child take care of themselves. We have a journal that's specific to children that asks questions about, gives them prompted things to talk about, to share memories and experiences with their loved one. It has resources in there for their adult caregiver on how to help a child. And so we're getting calls from the hospitals, from the hospices, from funeral homes, from schools for those coping kits. So we're giving out so many of those. So that's one way that we reach out to children in our community that may not be able to come to Healing House, that may not have that support system, that may not have that type of loss where they have people that can bring them here. So anyone in our community can come and get those. And then we've all
Amazing.
Recently working inside some of the public schools. We started that last year, and we're actually going back into some of our public schools right now where we're able to hold grief support groups for those children that are at the school who's maybe don't have the support system to get them here, but still need that grief support group. And, our counselors are being asked so much with discipline and scheduling and those kind of things that they don't always have the resources to hold their own support groups there. So us being able to go into some of the schools and help those families there where the kids are has been a great way for us to get out in the community too. So we know that even though we currently have over 200 children enrolled in group, families can start and stop at any time. So we'll serve over 350 children in a year that might walk through these doors. And we know that we're barely scratching the surface. We know that there's families who don't come to Healing House that could use our help too. So any ways that we can find to get our resources out there, provide these services for the kids is how what we're doing now. And that's why raising funds for Healing House is important.
Absolutely. You know, I think about just the kits that you provide and how necessary that is, but 400 in this year, and we're only 9 months in. That's, I mean, that is a staggering number of children who have suffered loss. I mean, and you have to realize this isn't regular loss. This isn't a great grandparent. This is going to be traumatic loss for most of them, a sibling or an immediate family member. And, you know, that's tough for kids. And so I love these kits, and I love that people can today and all the days support what y'all are doing and create the opportunity for more healing to happen in the community.
Yes. Any way we can reach out to those children and let them know they're not alone and give their adult caregivers some tools, because grief is hard. And, you know, we're not all prepared to talk about it. A lot of the things that happen, Jackie, is people will call us even to ask, like, how do I tell my children somebody died? Like, we haven't even told them yet. Because as adults, we're not always comfortable talking about grief and about loss. And how do you explain that to a child? And what are the normal signs that we need to look for? And a lot of times the calls we get are, is this normal? You know, and most of the times it is very normal. You know, I think as adults, we probably typically know our children and we know how to help a child, but we need reassurances that we're doing it right. So some of the calls that we get, and just having those resources on here's some ideas on what to say or how to help or what might come up is important. We also do a Healing House kind of tragedy response team. So if there is a common loss amongst a group of children, whether it be in a club or a classroom, we can come out and we can do a group for those children that have experienced that loss.
Wow.
If a child dies that's in the Boy Scout group or at the dance team, we can come do a group for those children. If we're asked by that community to come out, we'll come and do a support group for those kids. So there's multiple ways that we can reach out in the community and help families that people may not know about. If they think, well, we wouldn't be eligible to go to Healing House, or we don't really fit into what their model is. But a couple of years ago, we did start a grandparent loss group because we're very close to our grandparents here. So we have a significant person loss group now. When we moved into our facility 2 years ago, we were able to expand some of those services. So that's when we started our young adult support group. We started our significant person group. We also have an anticipatory loss group for families who have been diagnosed with a terminal illness, in ways that we can help those families prepare for that loss and help those children be somewhat prepared for what's coming. So we're trying to reach out in many different ways to help people in the community. And
That's awesome.
We're the only children's grief support center within 200 miles. So the next closest place to us is Bo's Place in Houston. So to have that here in Lafayette is amazing. And if families can get to us, we will take them. So we've had families come from New Orleans. We've had families come from Lake Charles. It's not easy for them to get here on a regular basis. So some of those families don't come for long, but a lot of our families come from the outlying communities here in Lafayette.
Kim, I'm thinking about what you're doing when you go into a group where a class or a team has lost a member. And I know that we have had that tragedy strike Acadiana more times than we like to count. I had no idea that was a service that y'all provided, and what a great tool that is. I think about just as adults, my leadership Louisiana class and also CEO Roundtable class. I had Kenny Hicks in both of those classes with me. And so our CEO Roundtable group, which we're all adults, we got together the day after the plane crash that claimed his and Missy's life. And we had to be together. You know, we just felt this call to be together and to grieve together and to share stories of the impact that Kenny had on our lives. And so I think about kids who don't know how to process that and don't understand how to be together. I love that y'all provide those tools for them to get together like that.
And that's one thing that not everybody knows that we have. And so we do have to be asked by the school or the club to come in, but we'll come in and we'll have that support group for children where it gives them a chance to talk about that person. And it acknowledges the fact that they're struggling, that they're suffering, and they might need to talk about that person often, you know, and what questions do they have about death and how that how that's going to affect their futures. And for a lot of kids, that may be their first experience with loss. I mean, unfortunately, the statistic is that 1 in 20 students will lose a parent before they graduate high school, which is astronomical. And right now we know that number is going higher because of, even just our health in general, the things that we've experienced with, cancers, and now with COVID. And that loss is just a whole nother level of loss. A lot of times because our kids aren't able to say goodbye. They haven't been able to be there. You can't be with your loved one. How do you say goodbye during this time? And how do you celebrate the life of that person when you're not able to have a big funeral, or you're not able to have those memorial services? So some of those things are just resources that we've had to kind of come up with and work with other groups nationally to come up with that information to provide to the hospitals and the hospices and people that are going through this, because it's a whole nother level. And one of the things we do here at Healing House is we also provide an adult support group for the caregivers while the children are in their groups. So while the kids come to Healing House, we have an adult group for their caregivers. And during the beginning parts of COVID, when we weren't meeting in person, we were contacting our families directly and just checking in with them. And it struck me as, when I was talking to one of these moms who had lost her husband, was that during all this craziness, you turn to your person and you say, can you believe this is happening? What are we going to do? How do we handle this? And that person's not there. And they're left with their 5 and their 4-year-old, or, their teenagers who are dealing with this loss. And the person that you turn to every day isn't there. So, being able to be back together and talk with everybody and have a chance for them to share with each other is pretty amazing. So.
Yeah, and the studies that I've read said that this is going to be, unfortunately, a record-setting year of depression and suicide and drug overdose because of the emotional responses to being locked down. And so I can only imagine, unfortunately, how much more demand there is going to be on all of the Healing House assets and resources for the rest of this year and into next year.
Well, we see it happening already. We do. We see the increased numbers of calls that we're getting. We're getting a lot of family intakes, families coming in every day to do orientations, to join groups. And not everyone will feel comfortable coming back to a support group. We know some of our families are like, we're going to come back when the COVID's over. We're not going back to school. We're staying home. So we're providing those families with as much resources that we can, through, just sending out activities and providing services that way. But it's been pretty amazing to have the kids back at the Healing House. We started our groups back up right after Labor Day when the kids went back to school. So things are a little different. Everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's COVID compliant. We're not going into all the different rooms. So we're having some different activities where we'll meet outside, where we'll provide different outlets for the kids where they're not having to touch everything and do the normal things they do. So it's a learning process for us, but just being with each other, just personally seeing the kids and seeing the families has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I am still amazed at all of the resources that y'all provide, and nobody pays for them. This is all done through the hard work of you and your team to get sponsorships and get donations and get support from the community so that anybody who needs to avail themselves of your services can do so completely free of charge. Like I said, the St. Jude model, that is just so impressive to me. And it just reminds me once again of what a giving, amazing community Lafayette is and why it's so important that people give today. So while we're doing these podcasts, going to Mighty Cause and donating to the Healing House is a way for you to ensure that there's going to be a grief kit ready for the next phone call that they get. And I just think that's so important.
Well, and like you touched on, our community has been so wonderful to us. We have amazing partners that have worked with us for years and years, just like your organization has helped us out. And all of our funds are raised strictly through individual donations, grants that we apply for, and then the fundraisers that we do. So we don't receive any kind of national funding. We're not part of a greater group that gets that kind of money. So everything we raise here in Acadiana, we raise here, and it stays with our children here in our community. So, every dime that people give, they know it's going to a family here that's affected in our community.
Right, right. No, I think it's amazing. And I think that for people who didn't know about Healing House before, I'm sure have had their eyes open to say, oh my gosh, I had no idea this resource was here. And we all know someone who's been touched by loss. You know, you were talking about 1 in 20 kids will lose a parent before the end of high school. So I have 4 kids. So it should be 4 in 20, right? I would tell you that I think I've been to 15 funerals for the parents, a parent of one of my kids' classmates. That's a lot of
That's right.
parents. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of families who've been affected. And it's just a tragedy.
It is. It is. And we just know that unresolved grief leads to problems later on in adulthood, and you are going to have to deal with these issues one way or the other. So, families can start and stop at Healing House at any time. We have families, like I said, that will be calling us on the way to pick up their children. Like, my husband died. I have to tell my kids, how do I group? We have families that'll come to us and say, we lost our person a year ago and we've joined every after school club. We did every event. We were never home. And now that things have slowed down, the grief has hit us. So it's never too early, never too late to start the grief groups. And then, grief changes as a child ages. So a child that maybe loses a parent at age 6, that loss is going to change when they're 13, the loss of that relationship. So we'll have some families that might come when the child is young. And now that we've been doing this for 24 years, we'll have families come back to us when the child's a teenager and say, we need some help because we're grieving a different loss now. We're grieving the loss of that relationship as a teenager. And those experiences are different as the child ages and matures and understands the permanency of the loss. And so families can come back and help, come back to Healing House as well. And one of the things we depend on a lot, along with the funds, is a volunteer force, because we have about 70 trained volunteers that work with our support groups every other week. And volunteers can be anyone that's 21 years of age that would like to volunteer with our families. So we have training classes that go on several times a year. We're actually having one in October on the 23rd and 24th. So you can go on our website, you can click on the volunteer tab. There's a form with a link that you can fill out to register for volunteer training. Once you go through the training, you're assigned to a support group that meets every other week. So either afternoon or evenings, just twice a month. But it's a great way to give back, to work with these families. We know as the need arises in our new facility, we have the physical capabilities of adding groups and adding children in our group. And that's one of the great things about Healing House is we can pivot. If we find that we have a multitude of teens, we can add a teen group. If we have a lot of little bit, we can add a youngster group. But we need the physical manpower to help us do that. So full-time in our office, we really just have 3 people that work with us on a full-time basis. We have mental health professionals that work with us as group directors in our group in the afternoon and evening. But a lot of our work, we depend on those volunteers. So again, you don't have to have a mental health background to be a volunteer. We have kids that are 21 years old that are in college that maybe are looking into a mental health profession, or someone that likes to work with children. We have everyone from every walk of life on up to retired teachers. So you're never too old, you're never too old or too young to volunteer with us. And then we find now that a lot of our volunteers are drawn to Healing House because maybe they lost someone as a child. And they say, gosh, I didn't have this when I was a kid. Or in the instance now that we have been around for 24 years, some of our kids that did come to Healing House are coming back as an adult to volunteer. And that is so touching because we know that we've made an impact if they're willing to come back and say, Healing House helped me, and now I want to pay that forward.
What an incredible full circle kind of process. So the link to volunteer is in the comments. And so anybody who's interested, you can go there and follow the steps to become a volunteer. If you want to donate, you can go to Mighty Cause. That link is in the comments as well. And please give all day long. Kim, I'm listening to all that you do. We've been working for your organization and a part of what y'all do for years now, and I didn't even know the depth of all the different services that you provide. I am so amazed by the work that y'all do. And so I love the fact that Acadiana has this resource, and I hope that anybody who needs it will take advantage of it because it's there for you and it doesn't cost you anything.
Exactly. And I think one of the big things is a lot of people have heard of Family Adventure Day. A lot of people love to go drink martinis. Not everybody knows what we do. We hope you never need us. We really do. We hope you never need to come here. But I think word of mouth for our organization is big. When people hear of someone who's experienced that loss, we'll have families call and say, okay, 5 people have told me to call y'all. Picking up that coping kit, it's a great way to introduce Healing House to someone that you know that's in need. And just you people listening today, just having that little bit of information in the back of their minds that if they hear of somebody that might use our services, they can pass on that information. And, for a lot of families, I mean, it's hard to pick up that phone and make that call, but when they do, it's amazing, and you're embraced here and you become a part of that Healing House family. And we truly believe that at Healing House, we're going to heal the entire family. So we work with the kids, we work with the caregivers, and you're a part of us when you come here, and you know that you're never alone and you have people that you can count on and depend on. And I think one of the great things is to see the connections made through the different groups, that you'll see these families really bond because they share a unique experience. Nobody wants to be a 35-year-old widow, but it's hard, and you don't know anybody else maybe that's in your shoes or that speaks that language. And here you can connect with those people and you can forge those friendships and those bonds that'll help you get through.
Oh, you caught me sipping the water. Yes, and I think what you are, I think, really pushing forward, and I think it's so important, is if you need this, it's here for you. No matter where you are in your grieving process, or the family or friend is in their grieving process, Healing House has the resource to match. And so take advantage of these opportunities. It doesn't cost them anything, and it's help that they probably desperately need. And so don't miss the chance to have people who can really speak the same language, know what you're going through, and help out, whether it's through volunteering or donating. Now's the time to support their efforts. Kim, thank you so much. I appreciate you being with us today. Any closing words? Anything else I forgot to ask or we missed and didn't cover?
I mean, I think you've covered a lot. I mean, just the fact that families know that we're here, that it's never too late. There's never any question we can't try to help you answer. We have a great resource library with books on all different types of grief. So it doesn't have to be just a child loss. If it's an adult that's lost someone, we have those resources. We can help provide resources as far as books, and also referring people out to different counselors or other groups. If there's an adult that's maybe lost someone and they need to be referred out to a different type of counselor or a different support group. So we try to be kind of the grief resource center here if there's anything that we can help with. And, just please give us a call. Know we're here and that we're here to help. And it's never too late to start. If you know someone who needs us, please just give us a call.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for making time today. And everybody watching, thank you for listening and learning about Healing House and the work that they're doing. Please give, please support, please volunteer, and please tune in the next hour. Coming up at noon, we have the Boys and Girls Club. We'll be talking to Missy Andrade. Kim, thank you so much, and thank you for all that Healing House does.
Well, thank you. And thanks for all your guidance. We appreciate all the help you give us when we come to you with these scenarios that we never thought we'd have to face. And so we depended a lot on your expertise and experience, and you've led us in a great direction. So thank you for that too.
Oh, look, it's our pleasure. And I'd be remiss if I didn't read this one comment real quick before we wrap up. Michelle Ezel says, "This organization has touched families very near to me, and it's provided an incredible resource to their healing process." So Kim, thank you for you and your team and all that you do.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Take care.
You too.
Well, the day